in Greenland, the ice melting. So we do see the changes that the planet is having. And my concern is that I have the impression that people are not taken seriously enough. So one of the things that I will expect is that in next week, when in New York the General Assembly meets a high-level General Assembly meeting with the three summits, the one on climate change, the one on universal health coverage, and the one on Agenda 2030 and to leave no one behind. I hope member states go there, not with speeches, and that's what the Secretary General has asked, but with concrete commitment. What will be the concrete plan of action?
Tell me what action and who would you call out if you will be at these meetings?
Well, I would say one of the things that I already, and I think I said it also in my open statement of the Human Rights Council, is that small islands are really leading because they are already living the consequences. So it's not, and many of them already have national action plans in terms of mitigation, in terms of adaptation, and of course in terms of prevention. So what I think it needs to be done, on one hand, is to do a lot of education, civic education with the children, with the people, because we need a cultural change, a behavioral change. I mean, people need to change the way they live, the way they consume, the way we produce, because otherwise this won't work. We need also the governments to have the courage, because it means to make difficult decisions. For example, sometimes you want the economy to go well. Of course, I did as well, because you need to provide people with a lot of things and a country has to develop. But on the other hand, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in terms of environment. The third thing is we need business on board as well, because green economy and blue economy can provide a lot of opportunities. It's not that the economy is going to end. It's just that we need to learn that we cannot continue doing business as usual. And we do have very important companies who are doing a lot on this regard. So we need everyone on board.
I want to stick with Brazil, actually, and on the issue of human rights, not just the environment, but other human rights, because you have called out Brazil for all sorts of violations recently, and the president, Jair Bolsonaro, who's a bit of a populist and who has a certain way of speaking in public, he then turned around and sort of attacked you for what happened to your father, who was tortured under the regime of Augusto Pinochet in Chile. Let me play this soundbite from the Brazilian president.
Is defending the human rights of the vagabonds. She says more still, she criticized that Brazil is losing its democratic arena. Mrs. Michelle Bachelet, if the people, led by Pinochet, had not defeated the left of 1973, including your father, today, Chile would be like Cuba.
Michelle Bachelet, that's an extraordinary attack. I mean, that's from one president against you, a former president of a neighboring country, Chile. How do you take that when he said that?
Well, I mean, I don't take it personal, because what I truly feel that it's wrong is that any leader could excuse torture and violation of human rights. There's so many, you listen to them every time saying that, you know, they're fighting extremism, so that's why they cannot follow the international standards of human rights and humanitarian laws. And that, I mean, very few, to be honest, very few excuse torture. I haven't heard it many times. But I don't take it personal, because that's not the point. I know, and I'm very honored to have my father and what happened to him in terms of that he was a Democrat who really supported democracy in my country. So I'm very proud of him. But the thing that I really care or I'm concerned about is when you see leaders, either with a hate speech, either with sort of incentivizing xenophobia, racism, or trying to rewrite the history of Latin America. I mean, in Latin America, we did have dictatorship, we did have torture, we did have extrajudicial killing, we did have people whose human rights were violated. And I think many of us really learned from those lessons. And I think that there was a lot of people who rejected this kind of arguments.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was really extraordinary. And as you say, I mean, it seems to, I don't know, it seems to whitewash what happened in the regime and to your family. Just remind us, for people who are not so familiar, you also were tortured. Obviously, your parents were arrested and tortured. Your father died in prison, but you also were arrested and tortured. Just remind us what happened and how that informs your leadership of the Human Rights Council.
Probably younger people believe that the 9/11 is only linked to the US, but in Chile's history, the 9/11 of 1973, there was a coup d'etat, and a military coup d'etat, and many people were detained, among others my father. And he was arrested, accused, because he was a Democrat. He really believed that the way to change a government, if people don't like it, is through elections. So he did not support the coup d'etat, of course. And he was put into prison, a lot of different accusations, but at the end, and he was tortured, and he died under the torture of a heart attack. My mother and me stayed for some time over there, but then I was studying medicine. I'm a medical doctor. And at that time, and then afterwards, they took us into prison, and so we left for Australia, where my brother was living. And then, of course, I came back to Chile in 1979 to continue my life there and work also like a human rights defender as well. I work in an NGO. I was a doctor for because I finished the school, but then I did pediatrics, so I was the pediatrician of young children who were either the daughters or sons of people in prison or killed, or
has said nasty things about you as well. And he has, well, certainly the Bolivarian Revolution had quite a lot of, the Chavistas had quite a lot of popular support. But this is what Maduro has said about you and your efforts on behalf of human rights.
What does Michelle Bachelet have against the Bolivarian Revolution? What does she have against us? Why your envy? Why your meanness? Why your negative attitude? She lies, Michelle Bachelet. Repent yourself, Michelle Bachelet. Enough lies.
How do you not just really respond, but how do you actually do what you have to do as a human rights commissioner to try to engage even those countries in terms of respecting human rights?
Well, in particular, in the case of Venezuela, if you remember, Christian, I went there. I sent first technical mission in March, and I went there in June. And to everyone, I speak in a very transparent way. I give recommendations. Countries can follow it or not. That's their own issue. But to be honest, I do speak with the truth. I mean, what I believe is the truth that I receive from all kinds of people. And we also said to governments before we leave a country, look, this is what's going to come. Our report will include that and that and that. And we use the same methodology for all countries of the world. So I would say it's very common, to be honest, that countries don't like to be criticized. Government particularly don't like to be criticized. And they always make comments, or sometimes they try to convince the office not to release a report and so on. But that's part of the job.
That's part of the job. So you have also said that you're alarmed by the U.S. government, the Trump administration's treatment, for instance, of migrants, and particularly the detention of child migrants at the border.